Hello Year 7, it's Miss Mulcair here again. Today we're going to be looking at a second newspaper article focusing on an adventure. So what I'd like you to do just to start off is I have a paragraph here for you from The Hobbit, and I just want you to copy it down and add in any missing punctuation or capital letters. There might be some bits that you might miss, but just do the best you can and add what you know. Just pause the video here to give yourself a chance to do that, and then come back when you're finished. Okay, so I have the full text here for you, so you can add in anything you might have missed. Like I say, there's a couple of tricky bits in here with some semicolons and stuff that you might have missed, and that's okay, so just add them in where you need to. Okay, so today we're going to be making inferences from a newspaper article, and the reason that we're doing that is to be able to understand the author's opinions on adventures. So we're going to take the text and we're going to make inferences based on what they tell us. So your word of the day today is enlightened. So if someone is enlightened, they are showing wisdom and understanding towards a certain situation. So what I want you to do is to go around to do your word of the day mind map. So give us an example sentence. Try and think of an opposite word if it has one, and what kind of category it's in. So is it a noun? Is it an adjective? Is it a verb? Your challenge is to try and find any synonyms that you can. So a synonym is a word that means the same thing. So can you think of another word that means the same thing that enlightened means? And then finally, how does it sound? What is the first sound? How many syllables does it have? And can you think of any rhyming words? So do your best to get as much down as you can. Pause the video here just to give yourself a chance to do that, and then come back when you're finished. Okay. So, looking at the article, there will be a copy of this on class charts for you to help you do the rest of the work, but here is a picture of it just so you can get a first impression. So I want you to write down what the first thing you notice about this article is and why you think that is. So in a full sentence then, the first thing that you notice about the article is because... Okay, so we're going to read the article together. I've got a copy of it on the slide for you, and then you'll have a copy of it on class charts as well to go through. Okay, so fancy a crack at climbing Everest? Don't bother. As far as the highest mountain on Earth is concerned, we have reached peak. That, at least, was the opinion of Chris Bonington, 83, speaking at the Hay Literary Festival about his new autobiography, Ascent. The book details his 4 expeditions to the mountain, 2 on the fearsome southwest face, the second successful, a tragic attempt on the northeast ridge when his friends Peter Boardman and Joe Tasker disappeared, and a final triumphant trip to the summit in 1985 with the Norwegian businessman Arne Næss Jr. Back in the day, Everest gave Bonington the kind of profile that could sell Bovril and more besides. But now, it's awful, he said. Thank God I don't have to go back there. And if you still insist on following in the footsteps of celebrity bucket listers Ben Fogle and Victoria Pendleton, be prepared to stand in a long queue, as you'll be doing it with about 600 other people. He is not exaggerating. This spring, more than 700 climbers and their Sherpas reached the summit, smashing the 2013 record. It's not cheap either. According to Alan Arnett's trusted Everest blog, the median price for a shot at the summit is a whopping $41,500, £31,000, from the more popular Nepal side. According to Arnett, this is the price of a car, which says a lot about his driving. My car wouldn't get me a ticket to Kathmandu. It's all rubbish on Everest these days, Edmund Hillary said not long before he died in 2008. If only. What with all those climbers and trekkers visiting base camp, 12 tons of feces each year gets shoveled into an enormous pit. The good news is there's a plan to turn this particular mountain into biogas. The bad news is that the management of the mountain is rarely so enlightened. The Nepalese Ministry of Tourism, which charges each climber $11,000 plus a raft of other taxes, has been criticised frequently for putting revenue ahead of sustainable management. The Everest industry has lifted living standards for many who live nearby, but it seems there ain't no mountain high enough that we can't trash it. Okay, there's a couple of words there at the bottom. I've put the definition there for you in case you need them. So you have ascent, which is the climb to the top of a mountain. Triumphant, which is feeling happy after achieving something. Enlightened, which is our word of the day, which means wise. And revenue, which is the money a company makes. So what I want you to do then is to answer these questions in full sentences. So I've given you an example there for question 1. What device does the writer use to open the article? The writer uses to open the article as seen in the quote. And then I'll read out the rest of the questions for you. So question 2. How many expeditions does Chris Bonington go on to try and climb Everest? How many are successful? What impression do we get of the speaker from the line, and if you still insist on following in the footsteps of celebrity bucket listers? Question 4. What are the main criticisms that Bonington makes? Number 5. In spring, how many climbers reach the summit? Number 6. How much can you get charged for climbing Everest? Number 7. What is the tone of the article? What specific words tell us this? And then your challenge there is, can you pick out some language devices in the text? So beyond that first opening line, can you find any other language devices that the writer uses? So pause the video now to give yourself a chance to do that, and then come back when you are finished, please. Okay, and then finally I'd like you to create a grid. So if you're drawing this out on paper, you can draw out the table as it is. If you're writing it on the computer and you find it easier to kind of do it in a more of a list format, that's fine too. So for each feature of a headline, for each feature or paragraph of the text, I want you to find a quote and what the quote tells us. So you're kind of summarizing and inferring, making inferences based on each section of the text, so that you can create a summary basically. If you find yourself wanting to complete a bit of a challenge, you can do this for the first article we read as well, The Weekend Warriors, about Brecon Beacons. But otherwise, just this grid on this article is fine. If you want to pause the video now, come back when you're finished. Okay. And then lastly, then we have our 6 features of a newspaper article here. So if you can, from memory, write down what each of these are, then please do. If there's any you don't remember, that's okay. You can look back at your notes from last lesson. Okay, and that's it for today, Year 7. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.